Hello, welcome back to Vickie's Country Home. Today I'm making my third pie in the October Pie Collaboration series. And this was started by Tammy at Little Jordan Farm and Mrs. Lori at Whippoorwill Holler, and they graciously invited me to be a part of it. So we have been making pies all of October. So this is my third pie, and I decided to make a black currant pie. Number one reason is a neighbor had an overabundance of black currants this year, and he froze tons of them and gave some to us. So I've never made a black currant pie before, but I'm going to today. And when I find something like that that I just have never done, and that I really, it's just a basic recipe, I go back to my old joy of cooking, and I've had this many years. It's well used, well loved. So I'm just using the recipe right out of that cookbook. So let's get started. Okay, I have already made my bottom pie crust, and it's sitting waiting for me. Now I have about 4 cups of black currants, and this bag was a little more than that, and it was frozen. So I've let it defrost slightly, not all the way. And like I said, it's a little more than 4 cups, but I'm using deep dish pie crust, so I think I'm going to be fine. And now what I'm going to do is I've got 2/3 to 1 cup of sugar, and I have to tell you, I tasted these and they're kind of tart, so I think I'm going to use most of that cup because it really is tart. I'll save just a little bit aside. I may add that afterwards. And then I have to add 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. And I'm going to go ahead and mix those in. Okay, I've got that fairly well mixed in. Now I'm going to add 1½ tablespoons of lemon juice. Now I want to let this sit for about half an hour, 15 minutes to half hour. And I want to see how juicy they are. So this will give it time to kind of macerate, and then I can see if I need more sugar and if I need to thicken it. So we'll come back in about 15-20 minutes. Alright, I've let these sit for about 15 minutes, and I actually put it in the microwave because they were still a bit frozen. And they are a little juicy if you bite into them, but they're still not totally defrosted. But they are definitely still tart. So I'm going to be adding more sugar because these are very tart. So this was around a cup, maybe a little bit more. I just want to mix that in pretty well. And because I think it's going to get a little bit juicy, the recipe says you can add 1 to 2 teaspoons of quick cooking tapioca. And this is minute tapioca, so I'm going to put 1 teaspoon. I don't think I need 2. I want the pie to be juicy, but I don't want it to be juicy to the point where it runs all over the place. So I just want to mix that all together well. And here's my bottom pie crust. Now, you may not have to do this because your climate might be better, but because of how dry it is here, I covered it with plastic because if not, it would just dry out and be hard and brittle, and that would not make a good pie. And I've pricked the bottom crust. Now we're just going to put this beautiful filling in there, and it's such a pretty color. And I'm glad that I used the deep dish crust because those extra berries made it a little bit thicker. I might have been okay with a regular crust, but I sure would hate to have it spill over. Alright, now I'm going to dot this with 1 to 2 teaspoons of butter. And I'm just going to trim the bottom crust a little. Okay, now I'm going to lay a piece of plastic wrap over the top of that again, just so it doesn't dry out while I'm making my top crust. And I'm just going to set this aside. I have my second pie crust for the top rolled out, and I am going to put a lattice. So I have this cute little pastry wheel that will cut it in fluted strips, but you can just use a knife, or you can use a pizza cutter. And as you can see, I am not real careful to make it perfect, but that's part of it being homemade. Alright, I have my oven preheating to 450 degrees, and I'm going to start putting the lattice on this pie. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I try and make it kind of even, but it really doesn't have to be perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold half of these back. Then we fold the opposite ones back. Alright, I've got it all latticed. Now I'm going to attach these loosely to the bottom crust. And we want loosely in case there's any shrinkage. So I'm just going to cut off the excess. And we're going to attach these with water. And you can use a pastry brush for this, but I think it's harder to me to do that than it is just to use a wet finger. Clean, but wet. And behind me, I have in my crock pot my caramelized onion and mushroom chuck roast in the crock pot, and it's so good. And I'll leave a link to that video if you want. Now I'm just lightly crimping the edges. I'm not trying to really hold it together, just make it look nicer. There we go. Now I'm going to put this in the preheated 450 degree oven for 10 minutes. And then I'm going to reduce the heat to 350 and cook it for about another half hour to 40 minutes. So I'm going to put this on a baking sheet and put it in the oven, and we'll come back in a little while and see what it looks like. So I decided before I put it in the oven that I want to put an egg wash on this. So I've beaten up 1 egg, just a tiny bit of water. And I am using the pastry brush for this. Alright, I've got it completely coated, all the strips with my egg wash. Now I'm going to put it in the oven. It has been probably 45 minutes since I put this in the oven, and I'm thinking maybe because it's the deep dish. But I took this out and it's beautiful, but the filling has bubbled up around the edges, and that's okay. I'm glad I added that little bit of tapioca because I think it gave it more texture instead of being just loose and so juicy that it would run. So, as part of this collaboration, I need to tag some more people. And I've reached out to a couple of smaller channels, and I'm really excited to see what they bring. The first one is Gail's Garden, Herbs, and More. Gail is in Northern California, is what I understand, and she's been affected by all of these power outages that they've been putting out, and it's a real hardship because especially when you have animals, you can't pump water, and it really is a difficult time. But Gail likes to forage for herbs and things like that, and I'm really interested in that, so I was excited to reach out to her, and she's going to join this collaboration, as well as Christy at Along the River Homestead. And I believe they have 1 acre on the Hudson River in upstate New York, which just looks beautiful. So Gail and Christy, you have been tagged. It's your turn to make pies. So I'm not going to do a taste test of this today, although I did take a little bit of a bubbled up filling because I wanted to see how sweet it was. And I think I got it just right. I think any less sugar and it would have really been tart. But I'm taking this to church tomorrow because our pastor is smoking a brisket and we're having a potluck. So I'm taking my pie. But I've already tasted the filling. It's amazing. So just gonna have to tell you it's good. That's all. So thanks for watching. God bless, and we will talk again soon.